Romel.
What's
What's up,
up,
Romel? How you doing?
gentlemen? Good evening.
Yeah, man.
I feel like it's been a
Yeah.
while. We kind of hinted at that this day would come. Back on was it on one of our call-in shows, right?
It was. I don't remember when that was. It was that far back, I think.
It's been 6 months or something. I feel like wasn't it after
Something
ICAST
like
or something
that.
like
It's
that?
been a while.
It
Yeah.
was like the
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's been a
summer
little
call-in
bit.
show.
Yeah.
boy. So
You
cat's out of the
know.
bag now. Tell us about this thing.
So yeah, I mean, it's out there. So the NK300. So basically, you kind of learning and growing off what we learned with the NK180. This was kind of always in the works. You have to progress. You can't just sit back and let things happen. So we started to. Man, we were working on this last year. Just getting it tuned in. It's all completely fresh designed lower unit from the circuit board all the way down to the controller to the rotor. Everything that's built in. It's all designed in house and. Yeah, and we went through I don't know how many different iterations, different tweaks and configurations and voltages and this and that, and we ended up with the configuration we're at now, and we were happy with the performance, and so it was time to let it go. So it's out. So basically, NK300s, it's a 3 horsepower equivalent. 1300 watt output motor, which is a little, kind of a little more than what is currently out there right now. Not a significant number, but it's a bump for sure. Efficiency is really good. We decided to go from 24 volts to 36. For a couple reasons, mainly for just efficiency and just overall longevity of the internals. We can get more in that if we need to, but yeah, we redesigned some of the features. We took some suggestions that we had from users and our pro staff and ambassadors, and just what we've heard from the chatter out there in the universe, and we tried to make some adjustments where we could. You know, you guys noticed the controller is changed, not only color wise, but shape is different. Um, Handle is different. Uh, Basically, all the internals are completely redesigned. There's the controller cable down, so now the connection for the controller is no longer up in the back of the controller. It's actually external outside, and actually you can't really see it. We don't have photos of it. So the control cable that goes from the controller to the motor now has a connection at the motor side. So you can run your control cable inside your kayak if you
Okay,
like,
got you.
and you can disconnect the motor control cable from the motor side. So that was a feature that we listened to. Us riggers, people like to build their custom kayaks and don't like to have a lot of wires laying down on the deck. That was something that was asked for, and we thought that we could make it happen. So it took us a while to come down to what connector we wanted to use. We wanted something easy and robust, and something that's definitely gonna um, take the beating that you guys put them through. It might not be perfect still, but I think it's the best that we could come up with at this point. So I mean, we're always open for making adjustments and making things better. And we do that through your guys' input. And so yeah, I mean, yeah, I've tested it quite a bit, and I can honestly say, I mean, the thing moves. There's a video out there up on the interwebs there of me cruising around on a Slayer Max 10, and everyone kept asking, like, "Oh, what were you speed at? What was your speed at?" And it was hard to tell because I was on the Delta, and the Delta's tidal, so going with and going against the tide is, so I usually take the median. So we were cruising right around 5.5 on a 10-foot Slayer Max 10, which is I mean, for a 10-foot boat, I mean that thing pushes a lot
What
of
was
water. So.
BDH getting out of it down there on that PA?
What's that?
What was
Oh,
BDH
yeah.
getting on that PA?
He was pushing so he ran a prototype. So we didn't have the prototype or the production propeller, which is more efficient, a little better now. But he was running 6.4, right around 6.4. Yeah,
Okay.
6.3, 6.4, right there, and it was untrimmed. I mean, we literally just threw it on there. We didn't adjust running height. We didn't adjust anything. We just literally threw it on there. And of course, you gain speed with trimming out adjustments, a little bit here and there, and you can get it dialed in. So it's I mean, six
So it's
four.
six plus miles an hour on a PA.
Yep.
Six
Yep.
6 to 10. We'll say 10 on the high side.
Well,
So,
it is funny. It's like, I tested it on as many kayaks as I could, and um, hydrodynamics plays a large part in all that. I mean, you can't push the amount of horsepower you have to throw at a lot of our kayaks to get it up to past that 6.5 miles per hour is just it's ridiculous. It's just not. It's just not. It's not saying that's not attainable, but it's not worth it. I guess at that point, what you would have to do in order to get that. So they're just displacement holes. I mean,
yeah.
there's really not much more you can push. I mean, the sweet spot, all our NK180 users, the sweet spot is right around 4.5 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That's you're gonna throttle up and throttle down. I tested the NT300, which is our transit version, on a little 7-foot dinghy. Okay, and like I was out there in an inflatable boat, and I just had to get it out on the water. I was testing batteries and whatnot, and I pushed that thing up to about 75%. Speed went out to about 4.5 miles an hour, and I dropped the throttle, and the thing just went like this, and it was just pushing water like crazy, and I gained like 0.2 miles an hour. It's so kayaks are the same. I mean, that's the thing is that, like, you get to your hull speed very quickly, and to get past that hull speed, you have to throw a ton of horsepower at it in order to get a sizable gain. So I think the 3 horsepower for a kayak is going to be max. I don't think you're going to be able to get more than that. There's no reason to.
And most tournament rules currently written are 3 horsepower cutoff as well.
3 horsepower cutoff, right? Exactly, and for a good reason. That's I think that's where it should be. Yeah, I mean, that number has been, I think, well thought out, and I think there's a lot of fact and reason behind that 3 horsepower number, and that's why we got to that 3 horsepower. And it's funny is you talk about 3 horsepower equivalent, right? You throw that number out there, and basically it's how it feels compared to like a 3 horsepower gas motor, basically, as far as how it pushes. Because actually, if you crunch the numbers, if you do the mathematical calculation, you're calculating watts, which is 2 horsepower. There is a calculation out there to do it. You can actually Google search it and look at it. Actually, 1100 watts is like 1.47 horsepower, like mechanical horsepower. And then 1300 watts is 1.74 horsepower mechanical. So, I mean, so that 3 horsepower equivalent number comes from feel and just push and speed itself. There is a little bit of debate on the calculations, but it's kind of just a number that was a baseline that was set by other companies, and we kind of just follow that. So, but actual true numbers, it's kind of interesting. We have a couple of really, really smart customers that, well, your numbers don't match up to the calculations. 1300 watts equals 1.74. It's like, yeah, we know. That's why we say 3 horsepower equivalent, because when you put it in the water, that's the way it feels. It doesn't feel like a 1.5 horsepower. It feels like a 3. So
Dylan Lowry made a point earlier in the chat there. He said getting much faster than 6.5, turning starts to get sketchy.
100%.
What kind of disclaimer would you give to people looking at getting any kind of motor on a kayak, as opposed to the specific hole that you're going to attach this thing to? You know what I mean? Because I don't think you want to just like drop this on a Lifetime from Walmart, right? I mean, you can, but
right.
You might be in for some trouble, right?
Definitely, there is a disclaimer for everything. I mean, you got to use, good reason before you do anything. I'm not going to stick a 20 horsepower motor on a like a plastic Pelican Bass Raider or something like that, right? I mean,
that's for Alex Fogiera's YouTube.
Oh, yeah, my buddy Alex. Yeah, he likes
fishing
to
is
do
dead.
all that
It's
kind of
dead.
stuff. Yep, yeah. But really, you just got to use some sense and use your resources. YouTube, forums, Facebook groups, all that. Just really do your homework before you make said purchase, right?
AKA, just look at KBN. We'll tell you what to do.
100%. Yeah, that's why we're here, right?
Got you, 100%.
Fam.
Just ask.
Yeah.
Tag Tim Percy. He'll tell you what's up.
Tim Percy in the comments. I see
him in there.
I saw him pop up in there. Yep. I did.
Tim's on YouTube watching. This is maybe the first night, Ryan, that we're almost split between YouTube and Facebook.
Ooh,
we're rolling about 170 live viewers right now, and not quite half, but it's close to half are over on YouTube. So
diversity, I like it.
Diversity, we're doing it. I can't tell how many are on Twitter, if any, but if you're on Twitter, thanks for you.
It's because we have our number one rigger on here. Remember,
right. the wizard, as he's been said in the comments.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, I can't shake. I'm not going to shake that one. That's for sure. That's
you make too much magic happen. So we covered the speed part. We talked about the rating, the watts, the horsepower. There's a couple questions that you see continually coming up. One is the Hobie PA hull rating. Is there any talks with Hobie Engineering or the Hobie team on having their hull re-rated at this wattage? I know they did the same exact thing when Torqeedo came out with their 1103. They upped the rating, sent everybody a new sticker, pat on the back, whatever. Is that something we should expect or can expect with this?
We've had chats with some. I don't know how deep those chats have gone yet or how far they've gone up the ladder. But I would expect that, if changes were made for, one brand to the next, I would expect the same as long as it's within safety, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about numbers and we talk about, we're going to take the two numbers, 1100 and 1300. Like really what's the weight of those two numbers?
Right.
And I kind of went through that already. So if you look at true horsepower rating, we're talking 0.3 horsepower.
Yeah.
So between the two, if you want to look at numbers. So honestly, optimally, it's going to be up to the manufacturer, obviously Hobie, to decide whether or not they want to make that adjustment. But it's been done in the past. So initially, the Hobie PA was at 400 watts, and we have to believe that was because there was a 400 watt motor out there, and that was it.
It seems like they just go up to what's available. Is my take on it.
Exactly. Now, if we were trying to push a 2600 watt motor, to put it on your kayak, then that would be ridiculous to think that, because that would be unsafe, pretty much. Yeah. So, the thing is that when you start talking about those numbers, is what is it really? It's really a number. I mean, do we really test, go through and stress test on the plastics to make sure that it doesn't affect the hull and anything? No. I mean, like I said, 0.43 or 0.34 horsepower isn't going to change much, and it doesn't increase the speed and the thrust rating exponentially on the kayak motor. It just doesn't. So we're going to be working on it. It's going to be a thing where we're going to have discussions about it, and hopefully we can say that companies will stay political and look at it, and if there's enough want and there's enough people talking about it, then if it makes sense, it'll happen. So
I think at the price point, you've kind of pushed that to the forefront. I think a lot of people, when they see $12.99 for a badass top of the line super fast motor, I think that's going to really push the point. Like, you can't ignore that. I'm sure you're going to see a huge influx of orders on this, because for the money and being able to choose your own battery, extended runtime, and that's something else I want to talk about, is runtime on a 36 volt. But still, like, I mean, I think that seems like a no brainer to me. But
yeah, no, it's totally, having that open architecture is one thing we hung our hat on, and it allows you to choose what you want to do. If you want that extended runtime, shoot, you can put 36 volt 100 amp hour on your kayak if you want. I personally would not, but I mean, you have that ability to do so. And if you don't want, if you only were out there running, 4 or 5 miles a day, you just scooting around your pond or scooting around a small lake, and dude, put a 30 amp hour, 36 volt on there.
Somebody, Joe Kirk actually asked length of battery life, and I'm assuming he means with that advertised battery on the website there, that 30 amp hour. What are you talking for length battery life?
So it's definitely, like, the math is real when it comes to, like, watt draw and power, and when we talk about batteries, and you guys, with Pro Guide, now you guys can, and this translates to all brands. So when we start talking about different voltages, so 12 volt, 24, 36. Everyone talks about amp hours. Amp hours seems to be the more common term, but which we should actually be talking about is watt hours, WH, because watt hours doesn't change when it comes to voltage. That's the potential energy that battery has. So if you have let's take in like a 12 volt 100. So a 12 volt 100 is 1,280 watt hours, right? A 2450 is the same watt hours. So it has the same potential energy. It just delivers power differently. So it's a 2450, 12100 is basically the same battery. It's just configured differently inside to give you different voltages. So a 36 volt battery, it's like 33 amp hours, right around there. I'm not good at calculations in my head, but I believe it's right around there. It's like 33 or 34 amp hours is still that same 1280 watt hours, right? So it's the same. It calculates the same. So when we talk about runtime, so if we have a battery, our 30 amp hour battery, I've tested it to 1200 watt hours. I can say that truthfully, because I've run it dry a bunch of times, so I could tell you. The 3630 will run the NK300 right at an hour, like 55 minutes an hour, full out. That's just full blast.
Hammer down.
Hammer down an hour. And my fastest kayak that I have was right around 7 miles an hour, 6.9, right around there. So, yeah, I covered right under 7 miles. Just full throttle the whole time, just flat out. Obviously I had another battery with me, so just swapped out and run back. But as you start to throttle, and this is something that a lot of motor users already found out, is there's a sweet spot. We talked about it earlier, and that sweet spot is usually on most kayaks between 4 and 4.5 miles an hour, and then whatever your throttle percentage is from there. Usually for the NK180, it used to be 70%, right around there, 75%, right around that time. And that's where you get the most efficiency with the most amount of speed that makes sense. So it's balances. So the same goes the same with the NK300, is your whole speed on your kayak doesn't change. So your most efficient speed is still going to be 4.5 miles an hour to 5 miles an hour, right? Not to say you can't run above that, but that most efficient speed where your motor's working the least amount and propelling your kayak the most efficiently forward, is you're going to find that sweet spot. And I found that's right going to be for the NK300. It was right around, like, on a, what was it, Titan 12. It was like 5.2, 5.3 miles an hour, something like that.
That's a good point that Dan threw up, by the way, as well. Just to kind of bolster what you're saying there as far as draining a battery.
Sure.
An XI3 draining 100 amp hour in 2 hours.
It's true. And
running it on down.
The reason, and we can go into, and then that's when we start going into voltages. So when we'll, once we get into that, you kind of get a gauge why we went 36 volts because of certain aspects. So, so like I said, like once you get to your sweet spot on your throttle, you're going to find out whatever that may be on your, it depends. Everybody's setup is different because everybody weighs differently. Their kayaks weigh differently. Their setups are different. So so one person's kayak is not going to run the same as the next person's. No way. It's not. Everybody has different weights. Everybody, unless you're exactly the same, you kit your kayak out exactly the same. Your weight, personal weight is exactly the same. Then yeah, you may run apples to apples, but otherwise everybody's going to be different. So you're going to find the sweet spot's going to be different for everyone. So, but yeah, I mean, most people, like when we talk about like, runtime, the easiest way to relate it is just max throttle. But once you start ramping back, the runtime actually jumps up exponentially. So it does translate over. So,
well, we already touched on the price point, but I think that was maybe the most shocking thing that people saw when it dropped. I mean, especially in these times when money is an important topic we're talking about. But yeah, I mean, $12.99, like Ryan already said, what a package to be able to add your own battery to it. And I fully expected to see this closer to the $1,500 to $2,000 range, and here it is at $12.99.
Well, because we're able to basically build just the motor itself. We didn't have to build a battery. We're not going into that. We were able to focus on getting the best quality components that we could use, and also build a lot of value into the design. We used a lot of what we learned from the NK180. That was our stepping stone to kind of grow into the technology and really implement a lot of changes and a lot of mistakes that we made in the NK180. We definitely, you learn from them. That's what you do. And in that learning process, you start to see where you can kind of fine tune the production process and the design process as well. So the price point, I mean, honestly, we went back and forth a lot, back and forth. And the number that we came up with, I think, is 100% fair. I mean, at what we kind of perceived to what performance cost prior to this, we kind of just bring that level of perceived value to the customer and pass it along, and then now with as much competition as there with lithium batteries, you guys know it. There's how many lithium battery companies out there?
Too many.
Now there's only a handful of good ones. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a ton of them out there. There's only a handful of good ones.
Because anybody can call China and have prepackaged the same exact, and when you look at them, they just slap their sticker on it. Like,
oh yeah, definitely, for sure. But but that competition in that market space obviously brings down the price. So your prices start to come down and be more competitive. So, I mean, if you were to go back 2 or 3 years ago and kind of look at it and say, if I were to go buy a 36 volt, 40 amp hour lithium battery, the cost is way up there. I was like, but compared to where we are now, because there's so much competition out there, it just brings more value to the customer. So that $12.99 price was calculated to be able to be in that the low $2,000 range to get a premium, high horsepower, high performance motor. And that's where we wanted to be. I mean, that's kind of,
which brings you in about $1,000 under competition.
Yes, that's correct.
Hey, and speaking of value, before we wrap this segment up here in just a little bit,
sure,
there's a little value we want to offer the 100 and almost 200 people watching this tonight, isn't there, Romel? What do we have for them?
All right. So basically we got together and since, I was so graciously asked to be on the show, we are going to do a promotion. We're going to do a code. That code is going to be KBN10, and you're going to get 10% off the purchase of an NK300, and that will run until Wednesday at midnight.
Sweet.
So Wednesday at midnight. So KBN10. So
there you go. You guys, you got the KBN10 code for Newport. You have the Black Friday deal for Pro Guide batteries. Pick you up a 36-volt battery. We're bringing it to your doorstep here. Rig your kayak up. Come on. Merry Christmas to you from the nation.
And don't ask your wife. Ask for forgiveness later. Don't ask permission. Ask for forgiveness.
Just tell her you just saved $1,200 over what you would have bought.
Yeah, so, and then another $129 thanks to KBN.
Yeah,
there you go.
Here we go. Buy her something nice. Get her a Starbucks gift card.
Yeah, and there's another quick question. Can you tell us about the warranty on these? There was 2 or 3 questions about warranty.
Warranty's the same as the NK180. It's a 2-year warranty. But I think you probably guess our customer service is really, really good. So I mean, anyone that's dealt with our customer service, I think, can tell you that we'll take care of the customer no matter what. So I mean, it is 2 years. It's 2 years in the books, but definitely we're trying to get customers for life. So I mean, we definitely take care of you. So
that's awesome. That is awesome. Well, Ryan, let's let Romel get out here. I know we've got another half of the show to get to, but what a great product you guys are, coming to the market with, pushing the competition and bringing this quality to us. I can't wait to see one in person and see what kind of magic people.
One, Jeff, or you banned from owning one? You want to ride in mine?
I can do whatever. I'm a grown man.
I can do whatever I want.
I can eat cookies for dinner from one of my favorite meals if I wanted to.
Okay, all right.
I like that. Cookies and ice cream for dinner.
There's so many. I mean, Romel's a wizard, obviously, but there's so many people that are so good at rigging boats. I can't wait to see what people come up with for putting this on all the different boats out there. So
Co's are going to have one on the front and one on the back.
Yeah. And of course, Dugout, if you just want to get it rigged up, take that thing to Dugout, and they are masters in the Southeast of taking care of that. So you can do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
Appreciate it, Romel. Always good hearing from you, man. Can't wait to see this thing in person. I'm excited.